International voices are growing louder over Russia's military intervention in Crimea, pressure mounting on Moscow to change course or face consequences. But so far, President Vladimir Putin seems unfazed.
What he calls the protection of human rights of Russians in the region, the U.S. and others call a violation of international law. President Obama has already announced sanctions, including visa bans against Russia, and he's talked by phone to Putin, but not much of it has come out so far. Joining us now, Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur, founder and co-chair of the Congressional Ukraine Caucus, as well as Congressman Randy Forbes. Great to have you both with us. Congressman Kaptur, I want to start with you. I'm curious, what do you think of President Obama's response so far? Do you think we've gone far enough? Do you think we should scale back or stay out of it altogether? What do you think?
Well, I don't think we should stay out of it altogether. I think that the president's steps have been very measured. Both on the diplomatic front, the sanctions that have been announced, we are proceeding in an ascending manner. And of course, this is essentially a European problem, but we share democratic values with that part of the world. And what President Putin has done is absolutely in violation of treaties, international law, Russia's membership in the United Nations. It's an aggressive action to an adjoining state. He crossed the border in a violent manner. And it's just astounding that this could happen in the 21st century. We know Russia's history as an expanding bear, always trying to take territory illegally. It took Russia 70 years to even admit the killing of Polish officers in Katyn in 1940. So we are not dealing with a country that always tells the truth globally. And we stand in solidarity as a country with the freedom-loving people of Ukraine. They have suffered enough. And frankly, Russia suffered.
So, Congressman Forbes, same question for you. Do you think President Obama has shown enough U.S. strength at this point?
You know, I don't have criticisms of what Obama's done so far in the Ukraine. I think we have to realize that you have 535 members of Congress. We can all pontificate any way we want to, but that has very little international consequence. When the president speaks, it does. I think clearly the president has to recognize that when members of Congress speak, they're talking to their constituents. When he is speaking now, he needs to be speaking to three groups: the Ukrainian people, the Russians, and world leaders. I think the fault I have is not so much what he's doing now, but the fact that this is not an administration that's got a very good track record with diplomacy, and I think the president doesn't have a strong credibility around the world, which he could use very desperately right now.
And Congressman Kaptur, that leads me to my next question. What effect do Obama's decisions in dealing with this issue have on how he's viewed as a world leader and how the U.S. is viewed?
Well, this is a real test of the United States as the leader of the free world. And I think that our country has responded directly, responsibly. We are actually sending some partnership missions to Poland, to Lithuania. We are working aggressively as a member of NATO. There have been several emergency meetings of NATO held. We are working with the governments of Poland, Lithuania, Turkey, Hungary, all of the nations in the region. So I think in the short time that has occurred, we've done extremely well. The OSCE, of which we are a member, has sent a delegation to the Crimea. You might note that they have been rebuffed. There are no free press allowed in Crimea. This is a very delicate and dangerous situation, and I think the United States is supporting our European allies as best we can. The one error I think Europe has made over the last 20 years, they did not admit Ukraine and some of the other states of the former Soviet Union into provisional membership in NATO. That has left nations like Ukraine undefended, defenseless.
So what would you say right now the Ukrainian people need most, Congresswoman Kaptur?
Well, first of all, no bloodshed. No bloodshed. One of the accomplishments of this past week, because of the attention of the world community and the media, which is so important in this, is to keep the focus on no more bloodshed. And I think that the world community, diplomacy at the level of the United Nations, within the European Union, within the OSCE, within NATO, has to ratchet up, and we need to de-escalate. No more bloodshed. That isn't in anyone's interest. We have a state that is transitioning to new leadership in Ukraine. and we have to aid that process. We need election monitors. May 25th, these are when the pre-elections will be held. We can't not allow that to unravel.
Mr. Forbes, what do you think of this OSCE business? They have, as she mentioned, tried to enter the country one way. They got rebuffed, trying another way now. What do you think of that? Is that a waste of time? Is it useful in your view?
I think you've got to have a multitude of different approaches. I think, for example, what do we need to do at this particular point in time? It's important for us to make sure we've taken as much internal pressure off the Ukrainians as possible, and I think that is by helping and support them with perhaps some loans and financial assistance to do that. Secondly, we shouldn't be making them choose absolutely between the West or Russia. I think the third thing is we've got to keep the verbal pressure up on Russia, because if you don't have that pressure taking place, it's kind of a green light for the Russians to do whatever they want to do. Final thing is we've got to get the world coming around to try to put a little pressure on Russia financially. Even though that won't be the ultimate determining factor, it's one component in doing that.
Thanks so much, Congressman Randy Forbes and Congresswoman Capter. Good to see you both.
Thank you both. And of course, tensions could continue
so
to escalate leading up to that referendum there in Crimea.
Absolutely. And it'll be interesting to see what happens when these sanctions actually start taking hold, if they do.
Yeah, absolutely. We will be keeping an eye on it. And coming up next on New Day,